the apocalypse, the last battle, the events that every guru is looking forward to with either dread or anticipation. Whoever wins, whoever survives this fight, will decide what human history and the world's history will look like. Will it be the forces of the worm, or will it be the forces of Gaia who will prevail? That's what we're going to talk about. Everyone speculates as to what exactly the last battle is going to look like. I want to go over which tribes do I think, and statistically speaking, would actually survive the Apocalypse of Werewolf the Apocalypse. I am Johnny, I am with the Gathered Group Games YouTube channel, and we're going to go over who do I think, and using a little bit of mathematics, statistics, would more than likely survive the events of the last battle. I'm not going to take any particular apocalypse scenario from this book and treat it as canon. Ragnarok, Weaver Ascending, I'm going to leave that off to the side. I'm just going to look at what did the tribes have and what did they stand to lose, and what severe hindrances were facing them right when Werewolf the Apocalypse ended. We're going off of, for the most part, first and revised editions for this. I'm leaving W20 and especially 5e off the table for this. I do have a small grading system for this. It looks something like this graph that you're seeing in front of you. I took combat, adaptability, leadership, and achievements into account when I evaluated every single tribe. Now, I've rated everyone off of a percentage-based scale. The closer you get to 100%, the more likely you are to survive the Apocalypse of Werewolf the Apocalypse. Though there are a few factors that I couldn't necessarily graph out that face every tribe. Some of them will greatly reduce their percentages. Without further ado, let's see if I can do this in one take. We begin with a tribe that would have had incredible chances of surviving if it wasn't for one thing: the Black Furies. I really like this tribe, and this tribe has a lot of stuff going for it. Combat, adaptability, leadership, achievements, they're not the best when it comes to anything, but there's very little Black Fury can't do. You look at their combat, everyone in this tribe knows how to use an axe or a bow and arrow, or at least has basic self-defense training. Adaptability, well, this is the most wild of all the tribes, next to the Red Talons. They can be in any forest, any biome, but also they cut out a huge territory for themselves in any urban or city environment. They have tons of connections. You look at groups from the Amazons of Diana to the Sisterhood. A Black Fury is going to know how to survive in her environment. Leadership, well, we have the inner and outer calyx. You can't get tighter in terms of leadership than that. A council of Black Fury crones that know the history of their tribe and have nothing but high hopes for this clan going forward and the plans to make that possible. And achievements, well, ever since the 1960s, the Black Furies have done nothing but advance. You look at the civil rights movements, you look at feminism today, women are sitting in a pretty good spot. This went from the tribe that had nothing to the tribe that has the world at their feet. So why am I only putting them at 75%? There's just one issue: the metamorphing plague. The Wild thinks it's doing the Black Furies a favor by giving them this pathogen that turns them into these bizarre mutants that completely skirt the line between man and woman, something that the Black Furies don't want. Along with that, they tend to lose their minds as you slowly become a Gorgon, or perhaps something worse with this plague. Because the Wild just refuses to leave the Black Furies alone, that's a massive detriment to them, which is why I would have put these gals at a firm 90%, but the metamorphing plague really is just that nasty. If they survive the apocalypse, they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do with the Wild. Are they going to be able to stay Black Furies after they survive the fight? I have no doubts that, sure, in the events of the apocalypse, they should be able to pull through. They've got the gifts and they've got the skills to do so, but the Wild is your biggest issue in this, ironically. Next up, we have the Bonars. The Bonars, not the best at combat. They're more about running away from fights than going in and finishing fights. Adaptability, well, it's the Bonars. This tribe is known for surviving anything. You put a Bonar in front of an urban environment, in front of a desert, in front of a tundra, they'll find a way to make life comfortable for themselves. Leadership, well, there's never been a central figurehead, besides Rat, when it comes to the Bonars. They work like a labor union, in a way, where there's not one central Marxist figurehead or anything like that. No, it's the Bonars listen to he who has the guts to speak forward. That's what they do. Achievements, well, ever since the Band of Man in the Middle Ages, the Bonars haven't really done that much. They participated in the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, and one of those three turned out well. But in terms of where I would place them in survivability, I would say there's a pretty good 80% chance that they'll survive. Even looking at all their factors, Rat, sure, you're going to have to deal with Rat and the Ratkin. And the Ratkin, if they survive the apocalypse, that's going to be a massive issue waiting for you down the road. But come on, this is the tribe that's known for surviving terrible situations. There's a high chance that these guys are going to pull through. I have very little doubt. Though, it's an 80%. I mean, I don't know how the blast battle's going to turn out. I'm just guessing the best I can. Next on our list is the Children of Gaia. This is where we get dicey with these chances. The Children of Gaia aren't exactly known for combat. This is the pacifist tribe. Yeah, the pacifism and being a skilled warrior, those typically don't go hand in hand. Sure, you have the patient deed, you have the imminent strike as camps, but that's an exception. They're almost like anti-tribute to the tribe themselves. In terms of adaptability, sure, you do have Children of Gaia living out in woods and tents, and in dens, and in cities, but neither of them really excel in these environments. They're more focused on people than the biomes themselves. Leadership, well, I would never refer to the Children of Gaia with having strong leadership, no. You rely a little bit too heavily on Unicorn and other tribes in order to get anywhere. The Children of Gaia are a tribe made up of Socrates. Socrates doesn't get anywhere if he doesn't have somebody to question or criticize. Though in achievements, once again with the Black Furies with the 1960s, the Children of Gaia exploded with the civil rights movements. Now, just about every left-leaning or progressive group has a Child of Gaia tied to it. The progressivism is their middle name, but given just how terrible they are at managing themselves, where just about every Child of Gaia sees the tribe differently, sees Unicorn differently, and how they kind of suck at fighting, sure, you have gifts like Jam Weapon, which is always good to have, but I don't know, that's not going to do that much when the forces of the worm get out of their tanks, stop using guns, and pick up their swords and claws instead. You only get so far with the Children of Gaia, and sure, you've got the fantastic versions of Mother's Touch. You can only heal yourself for so much in this game. You're not going to make that much progress, Children of Gaia. That's why I've only got them at 50%. If they cling to another tribe, that would increase their chances, but I didn't necessarily factor that into the rating. I'm not going to have them depend on another tribe. Sure, if they kiss up to get Fenris, if they kiss up to get the entire apocalypse, their chance is going to be, what, an 80%. But by themselves, nah, I don't really have high hopes for the Children of Gaia. Kind of stinks because I really do like these guys. Now, what are the Croton doing in this video? If you subscribe to the idea that the Croton sacrifice in Roanoke with the consumption worm set them forward in time to when the apocalypse would happen so they could have a proper battleground to fight the consumption worm, then sure, we're going to include the Croton in this video. And their chances, not so good. The Croton have fantastic gifts. They're all based around fortification and defense. These are very tanky wolves. If you've ever played as one, a Croton takes a long time to take down. But everything else, sure, you've got a good democratic model with your leadership. Sure, you banish the consumption worm. That's fantastic. But looking at the Atena, you didn't really do that much in purifying the Pure Lands. You might be really good tanks and area denial builds, but maybe not that good at being a fighter and adaptability. This is a trap out of time. You in this hypothetical scenario, you've gone from, when was it, 1590 to 2004 at the earliest. You're you're in an environment that's not your own anymore. You're looking around at the world that you don't know. If the Croton did travel forward, you're up against Pentex in tanks with bioweapons. That's not going to be. Those odds are not in the Croton's favor. And to make matters worse, wouldn't the consumption worm pop up next to them when they appeared? Croton, I hope you know where to find the Atena and the Wendigo so you can kiss your brothers goodbye. You're sitting at 30%. It's not very good. Though I do hope the Croton do survive, and I really like the idea of the Croton at least making peace with one of their two brothers, but that's just wishful thinking. Fifth in line is the Fiana. The Fiana are the jack of all trades when it comes to this game. There's nothing that a Fiana is necessarily bad at until it comes to lore. It's not that they have a bad story, it's that they got a really bad hand in history. The Fiana can do just about anything. There's no wrong way to build a Fiana. Sure, you don't necessarily want to be a generalist in the World of Darkness, but the Fiana, you can do any build with these guys. Don't worry about it. Adaptability, from the Children of Dire off in the wild reaches of Europe to the Mother's Fundamentalists right in the cities of Dublin and London. Well, there's no environment that you can't find a Fiana in unless it's incredibly cold like Russia. There's not many Fiana in Rage Across Russia. Leadership, you have the Ardrai and his monarch system and all his big line of successors. There's nobody too important to lose within the Fiana. You've always got a figurehead that's going to step in and take charge with the Fiana. Their big issue is achievements. The Fiana never really got to move outside of Ireland. They tried. They kept wanting to fight Rome on their home turf, but the Silver Fangs and House Winter Snow kept getting in the way, and before they knew it, Oliver Cromwell was knocking on their door, and Ireland is gone. And now the only territory you really have are some parts of Ireland and Boston, Massachusetts. Not much to work with, is there? Because they have nothing to really show for all their work, I was going to make their score abysmally low, but because the achievements were just that bad. But then I remember they have a very strong connection with the Corax and an even stronger connection with the True Fae. Have you seen Changing the Dreaming? Have you seen how busted some of the cantrips are? Now, the Fiana got a massive boost off of that, 65%. If you have the Seelie and Unseelie courts at your back, the Fiana, they have a way out. If all else fails, you can just retreat into the Dreaming and then go off into space with the rest of the Changelings or wherever they went in their Times of Judgment scenario. Okay, now for the trap we've all been waiting for, the Gaia Fenris. they're swinging strong. Combat, let's not kid ourselves. The Gaia Fenris are the strongest of all the werewolves for a good reason. They're not going to lose a fight anytime soon. I mean, after all, we're not using this as a factor, but in their Apocalypse scenario where they turned evil, they killed every BSD before that happened. These guys could handle the Apocalypse by themselves if they were smarter. Adaptability, once again, there's a Gaia Fenris in just about every environment. Fangs of Garm have the cities. Just about every other tribe and camp has everywhere else. They're fine. Leadership, I mean, come on. You got Fenrir. You've got the massive code of honor that Fenrir has placed before you. No Gaia Fenris is going to break away from that code unless they're insane. You all know the rules of the game. You all know what Gaia expects of you. You're going to follow these rules. You're not going to break these rules. A Gaia Fenris is not going to do that. And achievements, well, killing Wotan, who may or may not have been a gangrel demigod or some sort of malevolent force of the worm, maybe a Melgen Incarna, depending on how you see Odin. And all the wars that the Gaia Fenris have gone into, the Gaia Fenris win ratio, it's very good. They've only ever drawn to the Wendigo and lost to the Black Furies the one time. whenever a get goes into combat, they tend to win, which is why I put them at a very strong, the highest rating in this video, 90%. If the get offenders lose the Apocalypse, that's a problem. The Glasswalkers. This was a very interesting tribe to place. In terms of combat, well, nobody has the resources that the Glasswalkers do. Guns, tanks, helicopters, bombers, giant ivory towers with bunkers beneath them, sources of power that run independent from a grid, body armor, lasers, all the stuff that you stole from the Technocratic Union, all 5 conventions. There's nothing that the Glasswalkers don't have in terms of equipment. But their huge weakness is their adaptability. The Glasswalkers have a flaw in first edition where they only regain Gnosis in cities. There's not many Glasswalker lupus to talk about. There might be 5 in existence and that's it. And none of them really form territories in nature. They'd all stick to cities. Once the city is gone, what's a Glasswalker going to do? You adapted for city warfare, you don't know anything else. But in terms of leadership, the Glasswalker corporatocracy, led by Cockroach, that's a very firm authoritarian regime. Cockroach isn't going anywhere anytime soon. You have to take down the spirits to take down the Glasswalkers, and good luck getting Cockroach. I mean, he's Cockroach. Cockroaches are known for something. And in terms of achievements, well, we talked with the Black Furies and the Church of Gaia for the Civil Rights Movement. Good God, the Glasswalkers. Even before the Civil Rights Movement, in the 1920s, with their ties to the Giovanni, they amassed so much money that when the 1960s came around, they capitalized off of it. And now they are some of the richest people on the planet. They rival the Syndicate in terms of money. Along with that, all their connections with the Giovanni, an entire mafia family made up of vampires that know necromancy, that could have their souls as backup in the Shadowlands at their back, along with the virtual adepts and the Sons of Ether, and maybe once they wise up the Technocratic Union. There is a lot of stuff the Glasswalkers have to play with. I put them at a very strong 80%. Their survivability hinges entirely on the survival of cities. If that's gone, I'm going to say they drop to, like 30% at most. And if you were to EMP their backup servers with the virtual adepts, probably 20. Who's next? Oh, here we go. The Red Talons. Yeah, this feels bad. Combat, yeah, the Red Talons are very strong. They are fantastic hunter-killers. If you want to put the terror in your enemies, you play as a Red Talon. But adaptability, achievements, I mean, these are wolves, with more emphasis on the wolf than the werewolf. They go off into forests and whatever other biome a wolf lives in, and that's it. The Red Talons never really participated in history. They don't have much of their names, and you read their books, the Red Talons just lose something every time they pop up in history. You lost your forest, you lost your friends, you lost all these other cryptids, you burnt all of your bridges with the War of Rage, and you lost whatever you could have had with the Bunyip with the War of Tears. Though leadership, Griffin and Lion, well, those were 2 tribal totems. Griffin is, Lion used to be. You have 2 leaders at your back. Well, as long as they're still around and the worm doesn't get their hands on them, there is a chance with the Red Talons. Though, how are you going to live in a world post-apocalypse with the Red Talons? If there's only 100 humans around, yeah, you're really going to have to think about the Red Talons. I put them at a 35%, and maybe that's for the best. Maybe we should go without the Red Talons. Okay, I'm excited to talk about these guys. The Shadow Lords. There is a lot of stuff playing in their favor. Combat? Yeah, I put them a little low. The Shadow Lords make better politicians than they do warriors. They always wait for you to mess up before striking. They have a very defensive playstyle that relies on enemies getting bad rolls, and they're a little bit too dependent on the, well, World of Darkness system to really excel in combat. You don't see that many Shadowlord players because the gifts that they get aren't exactly that glamorous, but everything else about them, oh my god. Adaptability, the Shadowlords have the Lords on the Summit, with their shadow moots, they have bases all around the world. There's no shortage of bunkers that the Shadow Lords have. Anywhere from the United States to Russia, there's a place for a Shadow Lord to hide. Leadership, well, given that the great fascist in the sky, Grandfather Thunder, leads the tribe, you can't get stronger than that when it comes to leadership. You have the biggest of all big men, the manifestation of the Shadow Lord's drive to rule the world, controlling the tribe. They're not gonna they're not gonna collapse anytime soon. And achievements, well, given that they've technically won their rivalry with the Silver Fangs, they partially control Russia. They have ties in the KGB, and given Russia's current leadership, they still have ties in Russian leadership. Sure, you have the New World Order, you have the Zimichi, you have all of this. No. The Shadow Lords have the entire political landscape of the Geru Nation in their palm of their hands. That's what matters the most. The Margrave is a populist that is drawing a lot of heads in the Geru Nation around 2004, when the apocalypse is taking place at the earliest. Yeah, the Shadow Lords have a lot of skin in the game. And this is before mentioning the Camarilla, where they have direct ties and contracts with the Ventrue, which would lead them to closer ties with the Toreador, and even the Tremere would be talking with the Shadow Lords. Combine that with their loose agreements with the Assamites, now known as Banu Hakim because half the vampires quit the tribe. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff playing in the Shadow Lord's favor. There's just one issue that prevents them from being as high as the Gaia Fenris: their dirty laundry. If the Shadow Lords survive and don't manage to burn their past, then any tribe that survives the apocalypse and learns about the Shadow Lords, yeah, their heads might be the next to roll, which is why I put them at 75%. As long as they manage to keep a lid on their dirty laundry, everything should be fine with them. Next up is the guys who want to expose the Shadow Lords the most, but have their own swath of issues to worry about, the Silent Striders. In terms of combat, well, these guys have a day job of killing vampires. These guys put the fear back in the heart of a Cainite. There's very little the Silent Striders have to worry about when it comes to combat. A Silent Strider is going to win most fights, though most of these fights have to be one-on-one, given that a lot of their gifts are based more around mobility. That doesn't really mean much in a horde fight, but against single targets, Silent Striders have nothing to worry about. Adaptability, given that they were forced out of Egypt and had to find homes elsewhere, yeah, they've got some adaptability to them. Though I don't put them at 5 stars because you still haven't found a home necessarily. Sure, you have Ta's wheel in Morocco, but that's not necessarily the base of operations for the Silent Striders. Leadership, you have Owl, but once again, like the Children of Gaia, the Silent Striders are more of a number 2 kind of tribe. They're natural betas, so to say. They always rely on other tribes to make progress. Though achievements, back when they were self-sufficient, these guys fought and killed Set, an antediluvian. Have you looked at Gehenna? Have you seen how ridiculously powerful the antediluvians are? Set managed to get, 6 different antediluvians on his side in one scenario? Yeah, that guy was ridiculously powerful, and the Silent Striders managed to take them down. The Setites fell to pieces thanks to the Silent Striders. But with the apocalypse, it is very likely that Set will return when the apocalypse happens, given the worm's vested interest in Set. So why are they at 50%? Like the Croton with the consumption worm, there is a high chance that Set will come back and try to finish the job with the Silent Striders, which is why I have their fate a little ambiguous. Can they get lightning in a bottle the second time? Can you take down Set again? That's why I have them at 50%. It's a coin toss to see whether or not they can repeat their greatest historical achievement or not. Okay, who's next? The Silver Fangs. Okay. this might be a point of contention within the comments. The Silver Fangs, if you want to talk about power gaming, this is the strongest tribe. Sure, the Gethers exist. You weren't paying close enough attention to what the Silverfangs have for gifts. This is ludicrous what they have. Gifts from Luna and Helios at high levels? Well, I think we know who really deserves the position of alpha within the Guru Nation. There is very little a Silverfang can't do when it comes to nuking a battlefield. Their adaptability, well, given that they're the heads of the Guru Nation, they have skin in just about every country. There's no territory on Earth that doesn't have a Silverfang presence, at least one. Leadership, they're the kings. Of course they're leadership. Why are you asking me? Why are you asking me this question with the Silverfangs? Though their achievements, sure, you used to rule the world. You had one great achievement where, in prehistoric times, you managed to prevent the Calamity Worm from destroying Gaia. Sure, you have that. You know the secret of death. You know all this stuff. You have all these castles. But the Silverfangs have been losing substantial ground in the last 100 years. They lost Russia to the Bruja. That should have been an easy victory. And their campaign against Baba Yaga went up in smoke at the very end because vampires and the Niktuku got to Baba Yaga before they could. And in the face of the oncoming apocalypse, there is so much wrong with the Silverfangs. You've got their horrible pact with Luna. 7 years in leadership, you lose your mind. That's already pretty bad. Sure, you should be swapping out leaders with the war season, but yeah, it kind of gets in the way of the really strong unified leadership that you could see in something like, say, the Shellords might be a bad example, but the Geth Along with that, you've got derangements. I mean, there's no secret that the Silverfangs are insane. From years of inbreeding, it's going to take a toll on their minds. They look disgusting, they act disgusting, they think disgusting thoughts. They think the breeding age is 11, and it's their fathers who are thinking this. There's a lot of disgusting stuff going on within the Silver Fangs. They're dying of old age at 40. It's so bad. There is very little the Silver Fangs have to look forward to because more than likely they will not survive the apocalypse. I put them at a very low 30%. If they do survive, they're going to be around for what? 5 years, give or take. Yeah, we will live in a Silver Fang free post apocalypse, and that might be the best thing that can happen for the survivors. Who's next? The Stargazers. You're not faring that much better. Combat. Yeah, you know Kung Fu. You invented Kailindo. You might have a few tricks from the Akashic Brotherhood, but you aren't necessarily known as fighters. You lost China to the Kuei Jin. The Kuei Jin aren't that strong. I mean, I don't care what Bloodline says, they're really not that strong mechanically. Adaptability, well, given that you choose to live in China and only China now, ever since the vanishing of Clytol Puck, we'll get to that. Yeah, there's not much in terms of adaptability. You have all this information, you have this archived information, you know how to live in a city, you know how to live in the wild, but you just choose to hold up in what used to be Tibet. You're not doing much with yourselves. Leadership? Well, it used to be Clytol. It used to be Clytol who would reincarnate every time he would die and would lead the Stargazers, like the Dalai Lama or Buddha, but he's been away since the 90s. I think he would be back by now. And the Stargazers just keep their fingers crossed that he'll return when, no, you guys really need to act. You need to figure something out. Your achievements, this is where they excel. They figured out the Weaver had bound the Balance Worm. They recognized that the Weaver was a second threat. They have solved all these enigmas. They know how the world works better than any other tribe does on a cosmological level. That might be the... what would you say for cosmology? Something like that. Uh, you can tell me in the comments below. But they know a lot. That's the point. Though knowledge, sure, it's half the battle, but you still need to be able to throw a punch. You still need to be able to take a punch. And given how weird and gimmicky the Stargazer's gifts are, I don't have much stock in them, but I think they have a better chance than the Silver Fangs. It's kind of ironic. A tribe that only has 500 members and dropping has a better chance at surviving than the Silver Fangs do. Now, swallow that water. Who's next? The Atena, the tribe that purified the Pure Lands. I am not scared for these guys. There are chances, maybe not as good as the Bonars and the Fenris, but there's very little to fear with them. Combat, they've been compared to the Tremere a few times. Some of their gifts and rituals involve controlling the ocean and the sky, calling down lightning, all sorts of crazy feats. The Atena have a lot in common with the Dream Speakers in being able to cast out and out magic without the risk of causing paradox. I have nothing to fear when it comes to the Atena. Adaptability, well, name a place where you can't find Atena. They start off as a Native American tribe, but after realizing that colonization was here to stay, they went to the Pacific Islands, and then from there went to Japan, China, Africa, Australia, Russia, parts of Europe. There's no place on the planet where there isn't an Atena. Sure, you're always a minority in every land you live in, but you've got connections. The Atena, there's no lack of friends with the Atena. Same with their leadership. You've got Great Atena leading the tribe. And Great Atena, he's got a lot of contingency plans. He knows his stuff. Along with all the different leaders that form a very stable democratic system within the Atena, there's no loss for leadership here. And achievements, well, given that these guys purified the Pure Lands, that they're the reason that the Pure Lands were the Pure Lands, and they founded the Mayan and Aztec empires. Well, maybe not founded, but they were those empires when they existed. Yeah, the Atena have a lot to show. But yeah, colonization did knock out a lot of that stuff, but the Atena managed to bounce right back and have formed a different empire. We call it social justice. Okay, jokes aside. I would put them at a solid 70%. There's not much to fear with the Atena. But the Wendigo don't really fare as well. In terms of combat, they're fantastic. Cryomancy, along with gifts like Beat of the Heart Drum and Summoning the Tupilok, give a Wendigo time and resources, they will tear you to shreds. Adaptability, well, this is a weakness by choice with the Wendigo. They chose to live in Nunavut and only Nunavut. They're relying on their giant ice fortresses and their fortifications to save them from the apocalypse. Yeah, we'll see if that happens. Leadership, sure, you've got Great Wendigo leading the tribe along with the two chiefs, the Peace Chief, the War Chief. They've got a pretty stable system going here, and there's plenty of people that can take the position of chief if a chief dies. And the Wendigo trust each other. They're a very strong family unit, probably stronger than the Fiana. The Wendigo aren't going to collapse just because you kill one leader. And their achievements, not much. They did help purify Canada, but I'm more focused on actual legislation where the Wendigo, thanks to lobbying, managed to get the First Nations people, the Nunavut region, convincing the Canadian government to pay reparations and getting your own nation within a nation. Yeah, I consider that to be a 4-star achievement. If you were to extend that to the rest of Canada, I'd put it at 5. But given that they're in Nunavut and only Nunavut, what if the apocalypse takes place in Canada? And Canada's the first country to be lost. What are you going to do then? Which is why I put them at only 55%. Yeah, you could say that there's Russia that they can run to, but they don't have nearly as much stock in Russia as they do in northern Canada, which is why their chances are a little low. Though it's not the coin toss that's facing the Silent Striders. And that's it. That's the end of the video. I would like to take an extra second and thank you so much for 400 subscribers. Thank you so much. You might say World of Darkness is dead. It kind of is, but I am glad to see that there is still a community around with these games that cares as much about it as I do. Thank you so much for following the channel, and if you want to engage, well, that's up to you. I'm not going to shill for anything. This is where I put a big Patreon ending if I had one. I never going to start that. Alright, get out of here. Quit watching this.